Tower number 2 came down.
Oh boy. John Ivarone, you work at the World Trade Financial Center. That's next door. What did you see? Where were you?
I was coming back from a coffee break, walked onto our trading desk and saw, everyone watching the TV monitors, which was, I didn't know what the heck was going on. I thought the market was going to go crazy or something. And then someone told me that a plane crashed into the World Trade Center. It sounded like a boom. It sounded like actually a big bomb, and that, everyone was just calm at first, but a couple of my traders ran by me, went immediately down the stairwell and started evacuating. I just followed them, went down to the right by the seaport, I guess, seaport area, right by the World Financial Center, and you could just see it. It was just smoke was billowing out.
The booms you felt, John, were from the second plane, right? Because they were already looking at the accident of the first plane?
Right, exactly. The boom was certainly from the second plane. But, it was amazing. It was just standing across the street, because my building is right across the street from the World Trade Center. And, and just watching, there's people up on the 80th floor just waving.
What did you see? Did any people jump?
I saw 15 to 20 people jump. It was, without a doubt, it was the most... at first I saw a little debris coming out, and then you saw... It was definitely bodies the way they were. It was something you could never ever imagine. Like even in movies, it was the saddest thing I ever saw in my life.
Was there any fear for your building and your safety?
Absolutely. Being right across the street, of course. I guess when something like that happens, you don't start thinking about your building. But thank God the one guy I was following just started running away, and I followed him. And we got to a place in Battery Park where you can actually, we just saw people just waving for like helicopters, anything, and then just, and I guess in fear of getting burned or something, they just leapt.
So you were an eyewitness to death. You were an eyewitness to people jumping.
Absolutely.
Oh.
It was, and I didn't realize it until, getting home and watching on television what I'd really witnessed, and then that's when I had...
Boy. Before we talk with Tim and Rose, we understand we have on the phone with us a member of the New York City Power Rescue Team. Are you there, sir?
Yes, I am.
Okay. What is the name of your group? What organization is it?
Well, actually, we're fugitive recovery agents, and we're down here offering our assistance with federal authorities. We're waiting for the coordination, and then we'll be going in with any other rescue teams.
Can you tell us where you are right now?
We were right down at the building assessing the damage for my team, and it was a little bit smoggy, obviously. We're covered in soot right now, and we're taking our break until we can coordinate what's going on.
What early assessment do you have?
Right now, it's a mess. It's like Beirut down there. It's really a mess.
Can you describe it a little more? What do you see?
A lot of debris all over the place, obviously. Chairs, we even saw airplane chairs, over the place. That was
really?
Unusual, yes. Glass buildings 7-8 blocks away, smashed. It's devastation, completely.
And have you seen any bodies?
Not yet, we haven't. We're waiting for everybody else, wait for coordination to get together, all the federal authorities, also state authorities, and then we'll join a team then.
And what's your role?
I am actually, we are tunnelers, really. We will go through the debris, small cracks, anything that we can do.
Why do you do this?
It's what we do.
You've worked lots of things, nothing comparable to this, naturally.
No, nothing. I've never experienced something like this before.
How long do you think this is going to take to go through?
A long time. There's a lot of work to be done. A lot of work to be done.
Thank you very much for speaking with us. We'll be in touch again.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
All right.
Back to the New York Bureau and Tim Cavanaugh, who works about a quarter-mile away from the World Trade Center. As we understand it, Tim, you were on the phone?
Actually, my friend's brother was on the line with him, and they got cut off immediately. And then I was on a conversation with his brother, and he told me that his brother had heard the first crash and he was informing his brother of what had happened. And then all of a sudden the phone got cut off from him, and that was the last he's heard of his brother since. I brought his picture so that maybe if there's someone out there who can see him, who has seen him, or if he's in a hospital somewhere, maybe someone can call and let him.
Can we see it?
Sure.
Where's the picture?
It's right here in my hand.
Want to hold it up? Okay, so we get a close-up of this. And he worked in the building?
He worked for Cantor Fitzgerald on the 102nd floor. It's a guy I coach football with. I've known him my whole life. He's a great man.
You are probably resorting to prayer.
Actually, I walked from my office, which is a quarter-mile away, and it was desolate. It was like a nuclear bomb had gone off, and there were ashes, like, in the street, like about 1 foot to 6 inches of ashes, if you could imagine that, walking down the street. And I walked over to Our Lady of Victory Church, which is right down the street from Wall Street. And Wall Street, usually they have the barricades there, and there was nothing. It was gone. And you know, I picked up a piece of paper, and I saw the paper and read it, and it was from the 106th floor of the World Trade Center, and I just knew that it was, you know, you couldn't imagine it. It was like being in downtown Beirut in America.
Good grief. And on the scene is Rose Arce. Rose is a CNN producer in New York, a veteran CNN producer, and a very capable CNN producer. Where were you when this happened this morning, Rose? I can't hear Rose. Okay. I'm sorry, Rose. Okay. We'll have to check back with you, Rose. We're having difficulty. Let's go to Jamie McIntyre at the Pentagon. Jamie, first, we've heard the briefings earlier. What kind of shape is that building in?
Pretty bad shape, Larry. It's nearly 12 hours after this plane slammed into the side of the Pentagon. The building is still burning. The firefighters say they have the blaze contained in an area, but it's still not under control. In fact, if you look right behind my head, you can see some flames licking out of the roof there. That's part of the firefighting technique of trying to cut the roof open and let the fire burn through in order to put this out. Nevertheless, the Pentagon is vowing, Defense Secretary Rumsfeld and President Bush both saying that the building will open for business as usual tomorrow. That may be possible if they just open the other side of the building, where, of course, the Secretary's office is, the Pentagon briefing room, the National Military Command Center, all on the other side of the building. You know, in some ways, there was a little bit of luck in today's incident in that this part of the building was under renovation. That meant that some of the new space that had just been renovated was not yet occupied, and it also had improved fire retardant capabilities. And on the old side, over basically in this direction, that part of the building, people had just moved out to get ready for the next phase of renovation, so there weren't nearly as many people as might have been in the building at that time of day. Nevertheless, Pentagon officials expect the death toll to be high, but they are not saying publicly what they think that death toll will be. Larry?
And Jamie, have you been able at all to see the aircraft?
Well, you know, earlier today I got right up next to the building and I took a look at some of the pieces that were outside. There were only very small pieces of that American Airlines jetliner, a cockpit that was all, a window that was all smashed, part of the fuselage that was bent and twisted, but most of the parts of the plane are still inside the building, according to people who have been in and seen it.
Thank you, Jamie. Jamie McIntyre at the Pentagon. We have a panel of senators joining us, and before we check with them, here is just a moment of what the statement made tonight by President George Bush at the White House. Watch.
These acts of mass murder were intended to frighten our nation into chaos and retreat. But they have failed. Our country is strong. A great people has been moved to defend a great nation. Terrorist attacks can shake the foundations of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America. These acts shatter steel, but they cannot dent the steel of American resolve.
We'll be hearing in a while from a terrorist expert, an aviation expert. We'll also be hearing from the former Secretary of Defense, William Cohen, and we'll be checking with others. But right now, a panel of 4 distinguished senators have joined us in Washington. They are Senator John Warner, Republican of Virginia, ranking member of the Armed Services Committee. Senator John Kerry, Democrat of Massachusetts, a member of the Foreign Relations Committee, including the Subcommittee on International Operations and Terrorism. Senator Dianne Feinstein, Democrat of California, member of the Select Intelligence Committee. She's chairing the Judiciary Committee Subcommittee on Technology, Terrorism, and Government Information. And Senator Fred Thompson, Republican of Tennessee, a member of the Select Intelligence Committee, a ranking member of Governmental Affairs. We'll start with Senator Warner. Was this a failure of information techniques tonight and today, Senator?
Well, Larry, I spent much of the afternoon with the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and indeed had an opportunity to talk with the President from the Pentagon. That we assess tomorrow. Tonight, we grieve for those who've lost their lives, the wounded, their families, and we look upon this as the greatest tragedy in the history of our country, but also one of its finest hours, when we've seen this country come together like never before, whether it's the firemen or the rescue operators or the military all over the world, and we stand with one voice being spoken by our President, and he did very well tonight.
Senator Kerry, did your committee on international operations and terrorism ever actually fear something like this?
Absolutely, absolutely. But let me join John, and I know all my colleagues, in just expressing, I mean, I think all of us here in Washington are feeling in very personal ways the loss of what's happened here. I know that I had one friend I know of already on that plane from Boston, and I dread the learning of perhaps others, but for thousands of families tonight, there is just a huge loss, and I think in every American there's a sense of, there's a fury, an intense burning fury about this, and a determination to do what is right about it. We have always known this could happen. We've warned about it, we've talked about it. I regret to say, I served on the Intelligence Committee up until last year. I can remember after the bombings of the embassies, after TWA 800, we went through this flurry of activity talking about it, but not really doing the hard work of responding. We need to do that now, and I'm confident that the size of this, the nature of this loss, and the nature of this attack are going to motivate everybody to come together to do that. And I think that's imperative. And we also, I think, Larry, I was heartened by the President's comments tonight, need to make certain that those countries that sponsor terrorism, that support it, that harbor these fugitives, are as much a part of the problem as those who engage in the terrorist act themselves. And we need to make certain as a country we respond to that boldly and bravely, and not recklessly, but boldly.
Senator Feinstein, what are the next few days going to be like? There's going to be opinions from, what's your read on what's next?
Oh, I think there are many of us that feel that this was an act of war against the United States, that its loss is our human loss is going to be extreme, that the deviltry, the cunning, and the evil behind the act is extraordinary, and that we need to respond, and that America needs to come together with a unity and a purpose and respond. We cannot be a paper tiger. This act, in my view, it wasn't coincidence now that the World Trade Center has been the victim twice. And I think it's a symbol of America, and it's a symbol of what we want to protect as well. And so I think tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, the leadership has announced that there will be a resolution on the floor of the Senate for many of us. And I'm one that believes very strongly that rather than arguing over missile defense, the asymmetric threat against the United States is the most serious one. And we've had a good indication of that today.
Senator Thompson, President John F. Kennedy once said, when asked about his own safety, if someone is willing to give up their own life, that is almost impossible to protect against. What do you do when you have people like today, obviously in numbers more than 10 of the total 4 planes, who died for this? How do you counter that?
Very difficult. I think there'll always be a window of vulnerability that we'll have. We're living